Channel 5 Network. This is MorningLine.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Beres here on a Monday. Hope you had a good weekend. We've got a good show on tap, as always. And it seems like every day you hear some new announcement of something crazy, new, or exciting happening in downtown Nashville, be it new development, maybe an old development moving someplace else, maybe not too much leaving. It's everything coming or change, likely tied to the fact that we have such massive growth in this metropolitan city that it requires it to some degree, and we look at the costs of it all. And what I'm referring to here now is one specific announcement that happened last week that we believe is going to happen if they can pay for it. And depending on where it goes, maybe that's still somewhat up in the air, but the fact that we're going to be moving the jail and the CJC potentially to other locations besides downtown, which is just next to the TV station here, to tell you the truth. Very, very valuable property. We have the baseball stadium that just opened up behind us. Other things I can think can certainly be going in there, and the idea of moving elsewhere, especially when, if you saw the story, and we'll probably run some clips of it throughout the morning show, the tour I had of the existing Davidson County Jail and how it definitely either needs millions of upgrades or just spend the money to move it elsewhere. And there I am out front from that fantastic story that was made possible by the man sitting next to me here right now, Davidson County Sheriff Daron Hall. Thanks to you. That day you took me in there, and we went on a tour before the announcement last week to show what it's like. Your contention all along, by the way, has been it's going to cost millions and millions of dollars to upgrade the jail to get it up to snuff, and that it would not, in your opinion, cost that much more to just say enough with this, let's build a new place elsewhere. Is that right? You don't think it'll cost that much more?
Yeah, and it's not my opinion.
Okay.
The money that's been spent over the last year or so is the evidence. It's really not. I'm not an expert at all in that kind of cost thing. I know that to fix it's going to be very expensive. I could have said that with confidence, but yeah, the experts have said the report reveals that the CJC alone is about a $63 million renovation just to get in there and fix it. Million. Then you've got to relocate the inmates when you do it. That's about $7 or $8 million per year, just because they can't be in there when you're ripping out the plumbing and everything. Right. And keep in mind, that's one of our facilities. And you go down the street, and the HDC is another jail facility that if I remember correctly, is 15 to 20 million. I forget exactly on renovation, and another 5 or 6 million to relocate those inmates. And so when you combine all this, you're sitting at about $100 million to get everything up to where it needs to be. And so give or take $1 million here or there, the bottom line is that to renovate and to keep the existing facilities downtown somewhere in the $100 million figure, and to pack up and move our operation to Harding, as the proposal is somewhere in the $110 million range.
Okay.
The difference is, if you move us out there, we see about a $3 million a year staff savings from going out there, because you'd be designing it the way it should be designed. You're not stacked on top of one another, and your sight lines aren't prevented. And you'd have about $1 million a year in utilities and maintenance cost savings. So there's $3 or $4 million a year. 2 or 3 years into this, you've paid or you saved money for the city, if you look at it that way. Now, that's just the math of it. If you do another thing that the mayor's office doesn't really talk about much, and I understand why. They won't be here. The mayor's leaving in September, so they can't really predict what's going to happen, but I hope to be around to see this. But the reality is, this land that I'm sitting on is our 2 facilities and one across the interstate is worth somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million.
I'm trying to think. Okay, so just so we're talking about in terms of sheer blocks. I mean, okay, so you're counting the CJC, where the police department is as well, right? Right. And we're talking about, aside from you, the CJC or the police department moving out to Jefferson Street area. So that would happen. So we got that block.
It's about $12 million.
$12 million there. That big, the jail and everything. And then across the street down a ways is where
my office is, and there's a 500-man jail there. So that's a block and that's a $9 million piece of property they estimated.
Okay.
And then we have a piece over on South 5th Street in Shelby, which sits right there. It's a perfect crime spot. It's our old workhouse, but we use it for training and our warrant division, investigations, and various.
So that would be consolidated wherever the new place is. I mean, all these 3 locations would be in one if you propose it out at Harding.
And then the city has 3 very valuable pieces of land. And then guess what? If you sold it, and today if you sold that land for $25 to $30 million, then the tax roll starts to pay property taxes on that. Metro already owns the land at Harding that we'd be moving to. You don't have to purchase anything, and you would then in turn take government property and make a decision whether you want to sell that or not. That won't be my decision, but the next mayor or the next city or council can decide to do that. So you could almost see this, that's $30+ million worth of land, and then the tax revenue coming off of that. It wouldn't take long for this entire project to be paid for by the move.
And again, you already have stuff out there in Harding, right? The CCA, right?
Right.
Facilities? Or
well, we have 3 facilities out there. CCA's out there. All of our women that we manage are out there, and then we have another facility, a Correctional Development Center for Men.
Now, would those change in any way, or those are fine? You would just build an additional unit.
And we'd fence that entire system of one compound of everything we do under.
And there's enough empty space there now to put in there with what you need, and then fence it in as a whole compound.
One compound, and we've never been that way. We own 8 different sites today, locations wise. So, yeah, I mean, it has, and there's all sorts of efficiencies in that. I mean, we serve over 1 million meals a year. And we have 2 kitchens. One is across the street here. By the way, you never build a kitchen below the plumbing. and so our kitchen was built in 1982 in the bottom of the building, and everything is a mess.
Does it ever flood there? No, it doesn't flood, does it? Okay.
Daily.
At least if there's a fire, the alarms will go off. Oh, no, that won't work either.
That doesn't work. Maybe the lights that don't work because there's the electrical systems are antiquated.
Well, again, it is a jail, and jails are not supposed to be pleasant places.
Not pleasant, but safe. And to be honest with you,
safe, not just for the inmates, but for the staff.
That's what I worry about. They do more time than the inmates do. We owe them a safe place to work, and again, the new design does not make it soft and nice and a place everybody wants to be. I mean, it's still a secure environment, but we need to know that the security mechanisms are going to be operational, and that the fire system, we shouldn't be paying officers in this year to walk down the hallway and say, "Do you smell smoke?" Right. I mean, that's
just amazing.
I mean, it's pretty bad, and quite frankly, Nick, I mean, people have asked me, well, why are you just now telling us this or whatever? I've known this, and we've known this for several years.
Parts of the jail never seen publicly before.
Playing the audio. That's my story. She's queuing it up. But go ahead.
So, but it's not something new to us and those who work here. And the mayor's office, given that Mayor Dean was a public defender, he's quite familiar with it. I had spoken with him a couple of years ago.
So you've had people, have members of the council or the mayor or other staff seen the facility inside the way we did that day you took us in?
I actually have had several comments about your story from them, and actually, because you never go inside the jail. Most folks don't, and this was. We didn't. You can tell that we surely didn't go looking to create a crisis. There was some water dripping in the middle of the day. Hadn't rained in a week, I suspect. About this time, that wasn't an unusual day for us, and. It's just not really the way you want to operate a place in Nashville, Tennessee. We deserve better as a city.
When did you say that was built again?
1982.
82. Okay. So, and at the time, again, the design to this day, you kind of scratch your head and think, why did you set this up the way it is, with these elevators and all the way up with the? It just at the time, well, who knows what the architect was thinking? All right.
I do think other cities were trying to get in the downtown and high rise at the
maybe that's 30, what it was.
35 years ago. But we were overcrowded. We overused the facility, and quite frankly, most people will tell you that a correctional facility uses about 3 times the average facility's life, because you're going to the wear and tear, the maintenance, the inmates aren't tickled to death to be there. There's a lot of issues that go in operating a place like that. So they expect it to be 3 times its age. Well, that puts it over 100 years old, really. I mean, you're sitting at and most people who do what we do will tell you that's about the life that you should expect. And so our system is old. It's been overused and wasn't designed with things in mind. But quite frankly, Nashville's in a place that most people aren't. We have land. Yep. We have operations already in the corner of the county that would allow us to move out of downtown. And in the end, save the city a lot of money. I just think that's the bottom line. And one of the consultants is from Atlanta, and he's been here for a year and a half, and he says, I've built multiple facilities all over this country. I've never been in a place where, and he meant that the city had the space, that the value of the land that you would be leaving is worth something, that the facility is in dire need, and you're not overcrowded. We're not needing additional beds. That's not what this is at all. It's just replacing where we are. So we're not trying to plan for the future and guess how many beds we're going to need. This replaces what we have and should keep us okay for 20 years.
There's a lot of jails that need it. I saw Coffee County. They just opened up or had their open house for their new jail that they've been working on for quite some time. Right. And I know the sheriff there's thrilled. Sheriff Graves is just tickled about it. And they needed it. I've been out there and seen that. And boy, you see some of these jails in the rural counties.
Yes.
You do not want to go to jail there. But yeah, before we take our first break, let's just squeeze in a call. We've got several coming in. We'll go to Danny. Danny, good morning.
Hey, how you doing, Nick?
Hey, good, Danny. Go ahead. What's on your mind, buddy?
I've got a couple questions. I just tuned in for the sheriff. I don't know the content of your show today, but just a quick question. I've been hearing about this open carry gun law, and I was just kind of curious, if it was still going to have the same, like you have to pass the background. I mean, for some reason, I had a DUI when I was 20. Now, I did go to Cumberland Heights in 2003, and I quit drinking. And I was on some what they call benzos to help me from, get through a period of time. But I was denied, and I've never done any time, never been in trouble. And I was just wondering if this open carry, number one, like, where are we in that here in the state of Tennessee? And number two would be, what will the same, restrictions apply as to if you've been, in a detox or, if a record or whatever?
Okay, and I don't know how closely you followed it, but I mean, you deal with some of that. I know the governor just signed over the weekend something along the lines of the guns in parks and all of that.
To be honest with you, I was, by the time we get off the set, there's probably going to be a new gun law.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not comfortable even responding to Danny because I'm afraid I'd be giving you information.
Yeah, for his specific situation, and if he's had priors. But
I would encourage you, and I hate to say it this way, I would encourage you to kind of reach out to your legislative person because there's so much movement on those things, and they could give you the status. And like you said, they signed the guns in parks over the weekend. There's a lot of, poorly written laws as it relates to this kind of stuff, if you ask me. And I'm just saying complicated. I mean, I'm very concerned about, we want correctional facilities to be excluded from, where someone could have weapons in their vehicles. Obviously, we have a lot of concern about that, and schools and other things that are clearly an issue. But I think we could spend a whole show on that subject. Right. I think the movement of that kind of legislation right now, it would scare me to even tell him where it is because I don't follow it by the minute. I'm waiting on. We have folks who track our legislation. But if I were you, Danny, I'd reach out to my legislative person first to see where the status is, and then, quite frankly, you may even lean on a lawyer or something about the question of your own because I wouldn't be able to give you the answer. All
right. We'll take a break on that note. And as always, when the sheriff's on, we were talking about the jail, but you can ask other questions like Danny did. I know Joe and Linda probably have questions about the jail. But other stuff I also want to ask you too. I mean, we keep seeing time and again more things where we have individuals, oftentimes African Americans, suffering at the hands of law enforcement. And the most recent one, he's in the car, and he comes out with a broken back and dies. I mean, when you transport inmates and how things work and what kind of safeguards you have in place to make sure sometimes things don't get out of hand. We can take questions along those lines as well for the sheriff, who I know follows that kind of stuff very closely. We'll be back with more right after this. Stay with us.